Hey gamers, so this is going to be my first attempt at making my own video. I'm going to make a series of videos, hopefully, if this works, on some of the gaming we've been doing on Mondays, which is historical gaming. Today's battle is going to be the American War of Independence using Sharp's Practice. Now, we've only played this set of rules a couple of times, and this first video is going to be a little shorter, because what we're going to do is I'm going to take a video at the beginning of the turn, take a video at the end of the turn, and we're not going to play out the whole turn. Then I'm going to edit it and see if I can actually do this and if I want to do this. And if we do, then, hey, it's going to be epic. We have a Monday night group, Monday day group from 10 till usually 3, that we play just historical games. We do American War of Independence, American Civil War, Cruel Seas, which is motor torpedo boat World War II. We've done Napoleonic ships and aircraft, World War II aircraft. So we do anything historical related. If you're interested in anything, you can call the store and we can go from there. Anyway, on to today's battle. So let me show you the forces involved. So these are the forces involved in today's battle. So we're going to start off with Major Rob Taylor, that's him on the horse there, with Sergeant Bob Roberts. He is the second in command, and they are leading 3 units of Continental Line. Now, this is in 1778, so at this point in the war, the American line troops were as good as the British. Behind that, we have 3 units of 10 militia, led by Captain Nicholas James and Sergeant John James, their father and son. And behind that, we have the Lieutenant Bill Smith leading a Continental Light Skirmishers. Now, these guys are probably the best troops in the game because they're the only ones with rifles. They have 36-inch range compared to the 24 of all the other guns. And to back it up, we have one piece of light artillery, which is right there. And the British forces, so let's have a look at them. So, on the British side, we have pretty well the same kind of force. We have Major Richard Smythe leading 3 units of British regulars, and he's backed up by Sergeant William Boyd. After that, we have 2 units of Loyalist state troops, and that's led by Captain Jonathan Fitzwallace. Behind that, we have a unit of light British infantry skirmishers led by Lieutenant Gregory Williams, and at the back we have one Indian tribe, and it's led by Ponderosa because, quite frankly, I couldn't say any of the other names, and that's what I can remember. So those are the forces that we're having in today's battle. And this is the battlefield we'll be playing on. It's a 6 foot by 4 foot. It has some light woods scattered throughout the field, and it has a few houses and a crossroads right in the center. I figure the crossroads is going to be the major point in the battle because that's what we're going to do. Anyway, we're just going to play a meeting engagement because I want the rest of the guys to get used to the rules, and I'll be introducing them next. So we've set up the game, and the British, who have a force morale of 11, and the British have a force morale of 10, and the Americans have a force morale of 11. The Americans decided to set up their deployment zone right there with their movable deployment zone over here in the woods, where the British have decided to set up their deployment zone behind this copse of trees here with their movable one up by the crossroads. And with that, we're going to start the battle. At the end of full deployment, I will come back and we will have a look at what's happened. So at the end of turn 1, you can see that the British irregulars, the state troops, deployed there, the Indians deployed over there, and the British light troops deployed into the woods here. The British main regulars actually never got on the table. They didn't deploy. The Americans deployed his light troops as at the first, which opened up the movable deployment zone, and he deployed his militia, and his Americans, the artillery, the main troops, ended up deploying there. And what happened was he got 4 command ships, so he gave a second order to the major to move his troops, and they moved incredibly well right up to the fence line there. And that's how turn 1 ends. We're going into turn 2. So in turn 2, the Americans got 2 command ships to start, and then their light infantry moved up, shot at the British infantry in the woods, and killed one of the British infantry, which is First Blood. Then what happened was the turn ended, which means that the 2 command ships were used to move the militia up to the fence line and have Rob Taylor's American regulars turn and face the Indians which are across the fence. And that's how turn 2 ended. So this turn was really, really interesting. The British main force came out and they set up behind the trees here. The British light infantry fired a volley into the militia and retreated behind the tree line to protect their deployment zone. The militia moved up, and going over the fence caused them stress because they're militia and they don't like crossing fences. Then the American main force moved up the center of the field to try and flank the Indians, but the British Loyalist troops turned and fired into them and got a devastating hit and killed 4 figures. But in response, the American regulars moved up, fired into the American Loyalists, also supported by the light infantry which flanked them and caused 7 total stress on one unit and 2 on the other, which means that unit is almost ready to break. They can only take a little bit more before they break. And we're going in to the next turn. So this was a bad turn for the British. Apparently, the leader fired into the 2 groups of loyalist state troopers and routed one of them with a massive hit. And then the skirmishers came up and fired again and put another massive. So they both broke and caused the British army to drop from 10 down to 5. So the British force is at the verge of breaking. The Indians moved into the trees to try and flank the main troopers over there. And down here, the British moved into the trees, fired a volley, put a couple of hits, killed 1 man and put some stress onto the skirmishers there, and put a couple of stress into the militia. So the British are pushing down on the right side, but the left side looks to be folding. Let's hope the Indians can pull it out. Mind you, I must say, the British have not had any luck pulling their units, so they seem to be mired. Their leadership in this game has been failing them badly. So we're going into the next turn. Okay, so at the end of the turn, the British fired into the militia and the skirmishers and did some damage there. You can see there's stress on the skirmish unit. The militia fired back and put some stress on the British, but not too much. They're still holding their own over here. In the center, you can see the American regulars moved up out of the smoke that was set up earlier, but the main leader was shot in the flank by the Indians and pushed him back, which caused force morale. Again, the Loyalists were pushed back, which again caused more force morale break on the British. To put it at right now, British at 4 and Americans at 8. If the British get down to 0, it's game over with a continental win. So let's go into the next turn and we'll see what's going to happen now. Okay, so an action-packed turn. The British firing into the militia again, but not causing enough damage to do anything. They did manage to push the light troops back a bit and kill a couple of guys, so the light troops are now falling back. In the center, the American regulars moved up with the cannon. Around the back, there was a mass panic as the Continental regulars were pushed back and caused multiple cascade of morale checks as the skirmishers of the Indians were firing into their side. Again, the Loyalist troops weren't fired on or not hit. The leader did come back from his wounded status and fired into the American regulars, which caused them to rout and break the others as well, which caused a lot of morale checks. if we look down now, it's a lot closer. The British are at 4, the Americans are at 5. So it's still anybody's game. And you've got to remember, both of them now have command chips. The Americans have 5 and the British have 4. So if either of them lose any more morale, they're also going to lose command chips. And command chips in this game are very important. You also notice that the militia did form up. So they're back into a formation to do massive volley fire into the British lines. That's where we sit. We're going into probably what I would say would be the final turn. Let's see what happens. So this was a very short turn. Nothing really happened because one command chip came out. And, oh yes, the one command chip came out, the artillery turned and fired, and then the end of the turn came up. So the Indians took 1 stress, and that's all that happened in the entire turn.
No, I pushed them back.
Oh, yes, sorry. The Indians did fire first, and they did push back the Continentals, which caused another morale check, which means the Continentals are now down at equal morale, and they have now lost 1 command chip permanently. And that's where we're sitting. So at the end of this turn, the British had fired into the militia and pushed one of the militia back, which meant that the militia formation was only shooting straight ahead into the skirmishers. Well, the militia, because they're firing away and they're uncontrolled, had to make a die roll to see if they could take another order. Unfortunately, it failed, so they were just going to keep firing. They managed to kill 2 of the skirmishers in the woods. The Indians managed to shoot the backs of the Continentals, and they routed off the table. Now, you do see the Indians moved here because I actually forgot to video the end of the last turn, and we're part way into the next turn. But that's pretty well what happened. The cannon did fire for the first time in the game and put 1 damage into the Indians. And that's how the last turn ended. This is partially way through the next turn, which I will get to in a minute. So, as I suspected, the British fired into the militia. The militia broke and ran, which at that point forced the Continentals into a forced break, which means the British have won the game. If you look, the Indians did move across the field. They were going to move up on the cannon and the flank of the Continental troops there. And that's it. That's how we ended. So, Spencer.
Shot down the road.
Oh, yes. The Continental did shoot down the road at the very broken British loyalist troops, but they did manage to force them to withdraw, but did not get a forced morale point. So, Spencer, what do you think?
I can't believe I clawed that back. I thought I was toast like turn 3. Indians are the superstars. They definitely ran that whole side of the table. They got what? Probably 80% of the morale loss on the enemy side. I'm shocked that the irregular breaking didn't end up losing me the game.
Yes, and what do you think there, for America?
That was my big mistake, not shooting the regulars to get them off the table. And that pretty much cooked the rest of the game for me.
Yes, I think it's so this is, like I said, our second full game, and it seemed that shooting, well, you really have to concentrate on broken troops. If you do that, you can manage to force the enemy to break and force the army morale to go down, because that's how you win this game unless you're going for certain objectives. But like I said, force morale is important. And yes, it was definitely the Indians that won the game. They forced those 2 units to keep breaking, and that just forced the morale down. But the same thing happened in the center there. When the original Continentals shot into the Loyalist troops, they forced them back and scored that huge morale drop. They just didn't move up and concentrate on that. The Loyalist troops managed to get behind cover and not take any more damage. So that was a great game. The whole game, again, this is a learning game for, I think this is only your second game, and Spencer, it was your second game too, and it's my second game. So it was a great learning game, and we managed to do the whole game in about
3 hours?
3 hours.
Yeah, give or take.
10, 11, 12. Yep, 2.5 hours, if you include setup and everything like that. So that's shot practice. It's good for any black powder period. We actually have, if you look on the table here, We have 15mm American Civil War as well, which we can also use for the same game. So that's where we're going to set off. Thanks for watching. If you are watching, if I have less than 10 hits, I'm never going to do this again. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to edit this and see how I manage to do that. And we'll talk to you later. My name's Vincent, and I am Sir Games-A-Lot.